Somali taxi driver mocked for his accent. Years later, he owned the fleet in New York. The New York streets never sleep. Amid the honking horns and flashing lights, a yellow taxi pulled over to pick up a group of businessmen. Behind the wheel sat Abdi, a Somali immigrant with a thick accent and a smile that tried to hide years of hardship. But instead of gratitude for his service, the passengers sneered. "Learn English properly, driver," they jeered. Their laughter echoed in the cab as Abdi gripped the steering wheel tighter, swallowing the humiliation. That night, like many others, he went home with his pride bruised and his spirit tested. To them, he was just another foreigner with broken English. But what they didn't know was that this man they mocked for his accent carried an unshakable determination. Years later, the very city that once ridiculed him would see his name on every taxi license in New York. Before we continue this story, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, make sure to subscribe now. Abdi was born in Mogadishu, Somalia, a city torn apart by conflict. As a boy, he dreamed of peace, of building a life free from the sound of gunfire. His parents sacrificed everything to bring him to the United States, hoping he could have a better future. Arriving in New York was overwhelming. The towering skyscrapers, the rushing crowds, the endless noise. It was nothing like home. Abdi struggled with English, often mixing words or pronouncing them differently. People laughed, some even mocked him openly, but he was determined to survive. He took on odd jobs at first, cleaning floors, washing dishes, before finally managing to get a taxi license. Driving a cab wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and allowed him to send money back to his family in Somalia. Day after day, Abdi navigated the maze of Manhattan traffic. Yet instead of being respected as someone working hard, he often faced discrimination. Passengers scoffed at his accent, questioned his driving skills, and sometimes refused to pay him. At times, he considered giving up. But every insult only strengthened his resolve. He told himself, "One day, they'll see me differently." Abdi worked long hours, often 16-hour shifts. He saved every dollar, living modestly in a small apartment in the Bronx. He studied English at night, reading newspapers aloud, repeating phrases from television, determined to improve. But Abdi also had an eye for opportunity. He noticed how many taxi drivers, mostly immigrants like him, struggled with poor working conditions, unfair rental agreements, and little support. He listened to their frustrations during breaks at gas stations and diners. While most drivers saw taxi work as a dead-end job, Abdi began to dream bigger. What if he could create a company that treated drivers fairly, offered better cars, and respected the people behind the wheel? With his savings, Abdi bought his first used taxi. It was old, but it was his. He drove it tirelessly, saving enough to buy another, then another. Soon he wasn't just a driver, he was a small business owner. Still, the journey was far from easy. Banks turned him down for loans, doubting his ability to manage a business. Some mocked his ambition, reminding him of his accent and immigrant status. But Abdi pressed forward, building slowly, one cab at a time. As ride-sharing apps disrupted the industry, many thought taxis were finished. But Abdi adapted, upgrading his fleet, integrating technology, and offering services that made passengers feel safe and respected. His company began to stand out. Word spread among drivers that Abdi's taxis were different. He paid fair wages, provided benefits, and even offered free English lessons to new immigrants. Drivers who once struggled now lined up to work for him. Within a decade, Abdi had built one of the largest taxi fleets in New York City. The true turning point came one night at a grand charity gala in Manhattan. Abdi had been invited as a guest of honor for his contributions to immigrant workers' rights. As he entered the glittering hall, dressed in a sharp suit, he spotted a familiar face. It was one of the businessmen who had once mocked him in his cab years earlier. The man, now older and balding, didn't recognize Abdi at first, but when the host announced Abdi as the owner of the largest taxi company in New York, the room erupted in applause. The businessman's jaw dropped. He remembered the night he had laughed at the Somali driver's accent, the The driver he had mocked now stood at the podium, commanding respect from the city's elite. Abdi spoke humbly, sharing his journey from refugee to entrepreneur. He thanked the city that once ridiculed him for teaching him resilience. His words carried weight, not just for immigrants, but for anyone who had ever been underestimated. Before we continue this story, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, make sure to subscribe now. Don't forget to hit the like button and press the bell icon so you never miss our new stories. Abdi's success became a symbol of hope for countless immigrants. His company continued to grow, employing thousands of drivers from diverse backgrounds. He established a foundation to support immigrant families, providing scholarships, job training, and legal aid. The very accent that once brought him mockery became part of his identity, a reminder of his roots and resilience. Abdi often told young drivers, "Never be ashamed of who you are. Your struggle is your strength." Newspapers celebrated his story. From refugee taxi driver to taxi fleet owner, the American dream realized. Meanwhile, the men who had once laughed at him faded into obscurity. Their ridicule had no power compared to the empire of respect Abdi had built. Abdi's journey carried a timeless lesson. Racism and prejudice may try to silence you, but with perseverance, you can rise so high that even your enemies are forced to applaud.